We're a day later than usual doing our keto study club, which is okay because we want Nurse Kim to have a fresh brain.
Yeah.
Yes.
And not
Yeah. You
right
don't want
off
me at the end of a 12-hour shift.
That's right. That's right. So I got to be flexible. But we're going to go ahead and have fun today. But let's go ahead and cue our intro.
I love it. It's so awesome. I feel great every time I hear it.
It's got us all revved up.
Yep.
Awesome. So you two, how are you two doing?
I'm good. I've been at PALS class today, Pediatric Advanced Life Support. So
Yes.
I'm kind of tired from that, like just mentally.
Yeah.
But I can read. I can read. Yeah.
But you can read. Okay.
Awesome. Good. Got Carrie. Awesome. All right. Good day.
Hey, Jeannie with 2 N's.
That's right. Saturday morning in Brisbane. Awesome. Love our Aussie friends.
Yes, I love Jeannie. She is just amazing. And hey, I do have an update, a little bit of an update for you guys. Last night I had my follow-up coaching session. You know, I told you about the real age test.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm in my 60s now, apparently. But the guy, look, and I tried to find a way where I could approach it to where I didn't sound like a jerk, because I didn't want to be a jerk. I wanted to just like, and he says, well, how you doing? You know, and he was so nice. And I was like, well, I'm doing great. I said, but I'm a bit perplexed. And he said, oh, what's going on? And so I just said, well, I took the real age test, and, you know, I said, I'm perfectly healthy. I have no health issues, you know, and I ran through all my stuff, you know, that you guys already know. And I said, I'm just perplexed that the real age test says that I'm 62 and my chronological age is 58, but I feel like I'm 30, you know. And he was very open, you know, and very nice and gracious about it. And he just said, well, you know, I'm going to make note of this. He said, because I told him, I said, I know, I told him the items that made me seem so old, you know, like the cholesterol and not eating vegetables and not eating fruit and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a very positive experience. Like I said, I tried to be nice about it and everything. So I'll keep you guys updated, but I just thought you'd find that interesting that, you know, he was not like, oh, you need to eat your vegetable. You know, he wasn't like that at all. He was very nice. And so,
well, they do need to account for special diets, you know?
Yeah. And I told him, I said, you know, it's known that, you know, all of these things convert to glucose. And so if you want to avoid diabetes, and I said, then avoiding diabetes also prevents you from being at risk for cardiovascular disease.
Yeah. And it's more important, it's higher up than the cholesterol.
Yep, you know? Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, you know, he said, you've made some really good points here. And he says, I'm going to note that. And he said, you know, we'll follow up, you know, the next time we talk. So we're going to be talking, it's August 21st will be the next time that we talk. So I'll let you guys know what happens.
Well, you know, fortunately, we can all decide for ourselves what we're going to do with our health, right? We don't have to follow the doctor's recommendations if we don't want to. That's the important thing with, you know, having our own autonomy.
Yeah, I certainly won't be following anything any doctor tells me. So.
Nope. Me neither.
I mean, there's probably exceptions if I break a leg, something like that. But definitely when it comes to diet, absolutely not following any of the doctor's instructions for sure.
Yeah, it depends on who
So,
the doctor is,
yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
have my
even
favorites.
a lot of, yes, our carnivore doctors, absolutely. But even a lot of the functional medicine doctors, naturopath doctors, they're really into eating the veggies. They definitely, I think
Oh
that's how
yeah.
they're trained as well.
I love
So,
my functional medicine doctor, but she's constantly like, well, maybe you should try to branch out a little bit with your diet. And, she's gentle with it, but you can tell
yeah.
that she's like, well, carnivore is just not, they all use the word sustainable.
Mm.
Well, it's sustainable if I want it to be sustainable. I mean,
Yeah.
All I
Yeah.
have to do is
Absolutely.
think about needles, insulin and needles versus do I want this food? And I can tell
Right.
you that there is no contest. It's like,
You
no,
know,
no, I
I
don't.
feel like
And
when the doctors say,
I'm not diabetic, but at the same time,
yeah,
it's like I don't want to become diabetic. And I've seen how it
yeah.
right. You saw it
progresses.
with your mom.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I feel like when the doctors try to give us like feedback on the carnivore diet, like what you're saying, Ken, it's not sustainable. I feel like it'd be a really valid question to ask them. So, have you tried it personally?
Yeah.
Like, do you know this from personal firsthand experience?
Yeah. If they
Or,
haven't, it's their opinion is just null and void in my book. If
right,
you haven't even
exactly.
tried it, you have no
If
clue
you
what you're
haven't,
talking about.
yeah, if you haven't tried it, how can you even have an opinion about it?
Yeah,
And you
you
see
really can't.
people day in, day out who've been following the standard American diet. And I know that not everybody that goes and sees doctors has a crap diet. There's a lot of people out there who are really working on being healthy
Yeah.
as far as what they know to do. And they're eating their fruits and their vegetables and their grains and, eating, trying to be healthy with their diet, and they're still chronically ill. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, that's a rabbit hole we could definitely get down, get completely go down. Yeah, it's shameful how much doctors do not know, especially about diet, nutrition. Absolutely, for sure. So all righty, so we left off last week. I got to make sure I know exactly. Do you guys have us at the section insulin resistance or hyperinsulinemia, or did we go one further?
We went, well, I've got 1.2.2.3.3 is etiology of insulin resistance is where I have us leaving off.
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. Okay. Sorry, I had turned the page to look at the little gingerbread man. So we're good. Okay, awesome. So let's see. Carrie, you want to start us this week?
Sure. Yeah, I'll start. Okay.
All right.
1.2.2.3.3. Okay. Etiology of insulin resistance. The etiology of insulin resistance and or hyperinsulinemia is complex and likely to have multiple pathways triggers as shown in figure 1.5. Different ethnic populations have different prevalence rates of insulin resistance chronic that cannot be completely explained by rates of obesity, fat distribution, glucose concentration, or socioeconomic status. The thrifty gene hypothesis suggests that ease of fat accumulation and or insulin resistance acute added survival for certain populations, especially hunter-gatherer. However, no specific gene polymorphism or mitochondrial mutation has yet been identified to confirm this theory. The most significant contributor to insulin resistance chronic is believed to be overnutrition. Modern processed foods are often considered to be energy dense but nutrient poor and contribute to an increased risk of obesity, dyslipidemia, and hypertension, all markers of hyperinsulinemia. Nutrient deficiencies, especially vitamins D or B12, magnesium, and folate, are also associated with increased insulin resistance, as well as being independently associated with other metabolic disorders such as nitric oxide synthase dysfunctions. Obesity and or hyperplasia disorders may further aggravate these nutrient deficiencies by increasing the effective volume or distribution. In other words, vitamins may be stored or sequestered in adipose tissue. Okay. Although obesity is a significant contributor to the etiology of insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia, it is argued that it is not obesity per se that is the causative factor. People with simple obesity, absence of other symptoms of metabolic syndrome, maintain first phase insulin secretion. Furthermore, although prevalence of a population with a BMI greater than 30 kilogram, whatever, greater than, I'm not sure how to interpret that number, greater than 30 kilograms per, I don't know what that is.
Per square meters?
Okay, square meters, thank you, is greater than USA compared to Japan. The prevalence of type 2 diabetes is similar. Other aspects of modern living are also significant contributors to hyperinsulinemia, especially anything that disturbs autonomic or sympathovagal balance. Evolutionarily, humans are not designed to function under allostatic or sympathetic overload, or in other words, chronic stress. Excessive and continuous release of glucocorticoids, catecholamines, and other mediators will suppress immune functions, increase appetite, and aggravate hypertension and insulin resistance. However, this allostatic overload can also cause insomnia and other sleep disturbances. Disturbed sleep often results in increased stress and other psychological pressures the following day, which may further impact allostatic load and appetite and continue the destructive cycle. And I can just say that that is so true.
Absolutely.
I went through that fairly recently, and not having adequate sleep. I wish kind of retrospectively that I had like taken maybe blood measurements and things like that, but I didn't. But I know that it affected me a lot, like not having that sleep that I needed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they talk about the destructive cycle. So it's like you're stressed, you don't sleep well. You don't sleep well, you're increased stress. And it's just this really, this bad cycle. I wanted to bring up too, we're talking about insulin resistance here. And I watched a really interesting interview on YouTube just yesterday. I don't know if do you guys ever watch the Diary of a CEO?
Yes.
Yeah. He's a British guy. He has really fascinating interviews, and the guy's got a huge channel, like 6 million followers on his channel. So I like to watch his interviews a lot. He interviewed this, I don't remember if she's a professor. She says his doctor. So I don't know if it's a professor doctor, but anyway, she was talking about insulin resistance and how there's been a recent meta-analysis studies that have been this research that's been done since I think 2012. And a meta-analysis just recently was published that showed very strongly a different cause for insulin resistance than what we're talking about.
I saw that.
The C15 fatty acid.
I don't think that it was on Diary of a CEO when I saw it, though. I think it was on
there may be some other people reporting on it.
It was on another channel, and it infuriated me.
Well, it
That's the one that
intrigued.
I tagged I don't know if you saw it or not, but
um,
I made like a community post and tagged Dr. Berry in
yeah,
it and was like, what do you think
it
about this?
intrigued
Because
Oh,
me.
yes. Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
that.
it intrigued me because the C15 fatty acid that supposedly these studies show is causing a breakdown in liver cells, um, is found most prevalently in dairy fats. And
yeah,
so I
and
thought,
that's why
okay,
I'm like,
that's
this plant-based agenda has been pushed. Well, now we need C15. We're short on that. Gee, I wonder why.
right, right.
Like
So they pushed
what
us everybody away. Yeah,
common
they pushed
sense?
everybody away from butter. They pushed everybody away from dairy. And then it turns out that it's causing this particular fatty acid deficiency. So I was just really intrigued.
And
I was
guess what, by
wondering,
the way, what made me so mad is that I know it wasn't on his that I saw it now. It was on what is his name? Thomas DeLauer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
oh,
it
you know
was on
what? It was
his.
him. That's right. It was him. I watched a different one on the Diary of the CEO. Yes, sorry, it was the same
Yeah.
one. Thomas
So
Miller.
it was on
Yeah.
his, and there was a point in the video that I actually made a comment and marked, and I said, if you jump to this section of the video, you'll see. And he literally took a deep swallow, like this before he said it. And I'm like, I try to psychoanalyze, right? I'm
Yeah.
not a psychiatrist, but you can tell people give little tales before they say things that they're not comfortable with. And he was talking about how she's selling a C15 supplement. Wow.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
So the message wasn't more butter.
No.
The message was, okay, we need to extract the C15 and put it into a capsule because you don't want all the other stuff that comes with eating dairy that's so negative. You want to just get the C15.
Yeah, and see, her
Yeah.
husband was in the Navy, and so they did all this in the Navy. She may have been in the Navy too, but they did this while her husband was in the Navy, and I guess the Navy funded it, and I think they studied dolphins,
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
yeah, dolphins. And
Yeah.
evidently these dolphins are or low on the C15 too. And I'm not negating that like this could be a possibility. I'm not saying that it isn't, but when you are selling the answer to the problem that you're introducing to everybody, it's really it takes some of your credibility. And I think a lot of
I
people in
agree.
the comment section were like, oh, the military, because you know how people think about military, right? Well, I was in the military, okay? So there's nothing bad about the military to me, but I mean, I also don't think like people in the military are people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just like me and and
Right.
I don't think that necessarily puts them on this like high pedestal, but I mean, I'm not saying anything personal against this woman. I'm sure she's a nice person. I'm sure her husband is, but it just, that's to me, that's what it said is if you
Yeah.
scroll to this part of the video, you'll see what this video is about. You'll see, they're selling a
That
supplement.
product
But here's
itself.
the thing, if you can get it through food, no
Yeah.
matter what it is, like I've reduced my supplements. I mean, I used to be so like, when I first started this whole journey, and I mean, I had like a ton, supplements that I was taking. I was very
Mhm.
conscientious of what I was putting in my body and that kind of thing. And like I've gradually, like for example, like I don't take any kind of fish oils or krill oils or anything like that because I'm eating sardines. So I don't
Yeah.
need it.
You probably don't need
Um,
it.
yeah. And so it's like the omega 3s, for example. I'm not taking any of those supplements anymore because I don't need them. And I think that if there is a way to get it through natural foods, that's just,
Right.
but here's the thing, there's people who say, oh no, you can't eat animal-based products or whatever. But yet here's these supplements that you need this stuff because you're not
Yeah.
getting it through these other plant-based things. They're not going to necessarily say that, but they're going to say okay, this is the healthy way to eat, but you've also got to take these supplements to go with it.
And
And
I mean,
just,
don't misunderstand me. I am not against supplements at all.
no,
Like,
me neither.
I'll take supplements.
Yep.
I recommend supplements to others sometimes, depending on their situation and what their diet is and what their goals are and things like that. But I do believe, like you said, that if I can get something from food, which I did quit taking fish oil because I eat sardines constantly. There's no reason for me to take fish oil.
Yeah. So Cynthia says Dr. Boz did her entire Tuesday live stream on this subject this week. Interesting.
Ooh, I'll have to watch
interesting.
That. Yeah.
And Jeannie loves your earrings.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, Kim's earrings are always awesome.
I love earrings. I love jewelry, but I really love earrings, especially long ones. And these are lizards because I used to have 4 lizards. Now I have 2 lizards.
Really?
Oh, well, when I was working as a GI nurse, I had some dangly earrings that were a roll of toilet paper.
Oh, cute.
Oh my God.
I used to wear those to work.
That's cute. Well, this is my entire personality at work because you can't really have much of a personality when you're wearing a solid color uniform like everybody else's. So I have earrings and cute shoes.
I love your earrings. They're always great.
Me too. But, the whole thing with this study was they were talking about the people in Sardinia and this, is it Pecorino cheese that they make there that has really high C15, and how they're kind of like example, like she was talking about the C15 levels that they measured in the people there versus the bare minimum that we had to get here, and how it equates to their health and longevity. And so, my first thing was to go on Amazon and see how much Pecorino cheese costs. It's expensive, but you can actually get it. But I figured I want to see, like, what else do I need to do as far as maybe beef up what I'm getting. If this really is, it was a meta-analysis. So I'm assuming it was probably okay.
And also test. Let's get a test and see what our C15 levels are.
Yes. She did say you can get a test to see what your C15 levels are. She said that basically this people in Sardinia is like, what is it, 0.6 or something? And where we generally tend to run around 0.2 at the most in this country.
I don't remember what she said about that, but
yeah. But if it is true that is the missing link on insulin resistance, I'd be curious to know if that ends up being in a revised version of this book that we're reading.
If it's actually true, and I was just paying such close attention to I was hanging on every word she was saying until she started talking about the supplement she was selling. And then I'm just like,
there too.
You lost me there. No.
But I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater either, because I want to, if the study is legitimate and it really is a valid thing, then
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt. This thing had me so heated that day. I was like on fire. I was like, I could not type fast enough. If you go through the comments, I'm all through it. I'm like, how about we just eat this? Or, I don't know.
Well, that's a good point, because there again, if you can get it through nutrition, they tell us plant-based.
Yeah.
Plant-based. But yet all these nutrients are in meat and fat. Yeah. But yet you have to supplement to get, we need this nutrient. We need this. We need this.
It's
you need to supplement this. And it's like, how about we just eat meat? And, meat and vegetables. If most people did that, things would be much better.
For most people. If it was something we could not get, let's say it's something that doesn't exist anymore that we're missing. Okay, sell me a supplement. But instead of pushing the whole story, she was just like, you guys are short on this, and I'm selling this.
I also
was disingenuous to me.
Yeah. I also noticed one thing that I felt she should have emphasized and just kind of skirted around the bush on. She talked about the changes in our diet over the past like 50 years and how that's made, gotten us away from eating these C15 rich foods. But she didn't come right out and say, you need to stay away from seed oils. Like, she did not come right out and say that. She skirted around it. She just mentioned the poor diet. She didn't say the dietary recommendations have been bad, and didn't say, I don't know if you heard the word seed oil come out of her mouth, but I don't recall hearing it at all. And I feel like that should have been emphasized, that go back to using butter and quit using seed oils.
Yeah, and it's
And
not just in butter either. I
right.
just looked it up again. I thought I remembered hearing it was in meats. It says it's naturally present in dairy, fat, ruminant meats, and some fish and plants.
Yeah. It's just highest in dairy fat, but yeah, you can get it in ruminant meats, which we're eating a ton of. So I agree, Kim, that if you're concerned, you should get your levels tested. Yeah. So, but I mean, it may be, it's in the fats, right? Because it is a fatty acid. So
yeah, it's a fatty acid.
Maybe you're not eating enough fat. Makes me wonder if that's why I still have that like upper belly fat that I just am struggling to get rid of. It's slowly coming off, but it is slow. And I feel like maybe, maybe I'm not eating enough fat because I'm so concerned about, wanting to use my own body fat while I have it.
And that's, and I recently heard from like somebody very reputable, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I don't think it was Bart K. I think it was Dr. Westman that basically said, and I wish I could tell you like the science behind this, but he basically said, when you eat more fat, your body, like you get your body used to wanting to use the fat to burn the fat. So it was kind of like, don't be afraid of eating more fat. I know there are some people in the keto space who will say, don't eat the fat, just use the fat on your body. But he was kind of suggesting that maybe eating, and I don't want to misquote him or anything, but
no, but I've heard Dr. Berry say similar things. It's like, because when you eat things, it's processed, like your body processes it. So just like when you think of fat intake versus fat on your body, that's two totally different things. And so people think of that as, it's interchangeable, but it really, it's different, because one thing is your body's going through all these processes to metabolize it. But then the other is something that's already on your body. And it's not like you have to sacrifice, like, okay, I'm not going to eat any fat so that I use the fat on my body. I've heard him say, that's ridiculous. That's not how the body works. And I mean, you can find videos, by him that can explain it better than I can, because for one thing, quite honestly, that's not something I've done much research on, but I've just heard about it and heard him talk about it. But that basically that the more fat that you eat, the metabolization of fat is not the same as using fat that's on your body to burn it away, to lose weight and to reshape your body, if that makes sense.
I mean, basically it's telling your body, instead of using sugar for a fuel source, we're using fat for our fuel source, because protein is not, we're not using that as fuel. That's a building block. We can use it to build, muscles and things like that. But like, that's not our immediate fuel. Sugar or fat is fueling our body. So, and ketones.
Well, I wonder, I'm going to have to look into it more, because my wondering is, like, if I feed myself a X amount of fat, and that's all the fat my body needs, will my body utilize it, my own stored body fat?
I think I've heard basically that, because I've heard, I know that there's a debate or whatever in the like low carb space about that. And that basically what I've heard Dr. Berry say, and of course, he's not God or anything, but that if you primarily, if you eat high fat, that doesn't determine what fat in your body is used. That's a different process.
Okay.
In your whole, and so that just by eating the very low carb, the very high fat, and whatever protein rate or protein measurement you want to consume,
Mm-hmm.
but
And
that your body will then metabolize the food in one way, but it uses the fat on your body. It's not an either or. In other words, it's a both and.
And
I guess
Dr. Westman had a good
okay.
video. Dr. Westman had a good video from just the other day about this too, that I was going to send you guys. And sometimes I'm like, I send them so many videos. I need to
No,
stop.
I like it. Send them.
They're good. Yeah.
But I'll find it. And I think
along.
what he said was that, the fat, it doesn't just get immediately used. You still have to store that. Like your liver still has to process and store that. Like it's not just floating around in your bloodstream for you to use. That's not how it works. There's more to your metabolism than just.
I need to learn more about for sure.
And a lot of these questions that we all have are the same, which is why we're reading this,
Well, yeah. And I hope that this is something that's going to be covered in the book and that we'll get the answers. But yeah, I may just need to do a tested trial. Like I can eat butter. Like I can do like Bella, and I can actually take bites out of and eat butter. And sometimes I actually do that because if I feel like
I do that.
If I'm craving
I tried that and it gives me diarrhea.
I cannot.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just
I can't do
big old chunk. Look, okay.
Can't do salted though.
I've got
butter
by my desk.
I mean, I love it. It tastes delicious, but it will make my stomach really upset if I do that.
Yeah, it's so good when you take a bite, you just let it dissolve in your mouth.
Yes.
And then so maybe I'll do more of that, and I'll just kind of put it to the test and see.
I can do a little, like I can do I make those little browned butter bites, and I'll do like a couple of those at a time, or maybe 3 at a time. But if I just eat a quarter of a stick of butter or whatever, it's way too much for me.
Yeah. So Dr. Berry says that the high fat feeds your body and very low carb, and it allows your body to burn your fat for energy, and that's how you lose weight. So I may to just go crazy on the fat. I think that if I eat more actual butter, taking the bites of the butter, I probably will feel very satiated. So we'll see. Okay, well, we're never going to get through this section. I really want to talk about that.
That's all right. Look, this is our study group.
Yeah,
and we can have
everybody else is just eavesdropping.
Well, everybody is, yes, and everybody's welcome to contribute.
Yeah, we're happy you're here.
When we go off, on different road, that's okay. Because I think it's helpful to talk about these things, because I know that there are a lot of people out there who struggle with this same thing. And I've heard this discussion about the fat, being bandied about, and I don't have any experience with it, so I can't speak to it, but I have heard, Dr. Berry respond to this a lot. And so, I mean, it's worth considering if nothing else.
And some of these concepts are very, complicated concepts.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and if there's a link to the fat with insulin resistance, and we are reading about insulin resistance, then it's something that's worthwhile to delve into.
Yeah.
Because if it's not just sugar and it's not just carbs, but there's an actual type of fatty acid that we need to eat more of to help with insulin resistance, then I think that's a good thing to know.
And I think, of course, the main thing for insulin resistance, and maybe I'm just too simplistic in my brain, but it's just like eat basically very low carb, high fat, keep your insulin from going up, and eventually you're going to get there. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just
Thank
what
you,
I think.
Amy.
I'm very simplistic, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, I think that that's dead on though, Carrie, you know. If we, you know, I like to think of things very concretely and very basically. Um, you know, people wouldn't have made it as far as we had if we needed to take a little C15 pill, you know.
Right.
Like we're not there's nothing that they had in the past that we don't have today that I'm aware
Yeah.
of, you know, that we're eating on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Absolutely.
as a matter of fact, we've got too much today.
Yeah, way too
So
much.
I
Right.
think if
Well, like he's
we,
talking about overnutrition, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, get back to the basics, really. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's what we need to do is get back to our roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So
One more paragraph in this section.
Poor
Go for
sleep
it.
quality, which, yeah, this is something I struggle with because I still have it, even though, like, I used to have to get up in the night. For example, my kids are grown and gone, but I had a cat who had some issues, and you know, at least once a night, I'd have to get up with him for something, whether he was getting
Yeah.
sick or whether he thought he was hungry. Therefore, and then of course I had to use the bathroom. So therefore my sleep quality suffered. And I'm slowly, I think I'm getting back into a good sleep rhythm. So this is going to be really helpful here. So it says poor sleep quality is indisputably associated with insulin resistance, hyperinsulinemia, and with many of its sequelae. Poor sleep is clearly related to modern living. Oh, yeah. For example, excessive light, especially in the blue spectrum, noise, bedroom temperature and or humidity, shift work, and excessive mental stimulation too close to bedtime. Okay, how many of us can? All of us.
listen, this is me at night.
Yes.
As I'm probably sending stuff to people.
Do you ever drop your phone when you're nodding off because you're
All
on
the
it? I
time,
had
yeah.
one time I dropped it on my face.
I did. I dropped it on my head, and I had a mark here, like a bruise.
Okay, so obviously we own this part of our lives. Like,
yes,
this is a
we
problem.
do. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Sleep deprivation disturbs insulin secretion oscillations through a variety of mechanisms. It also increases cortisol secretion, impairing GLUT4 translocation and catecholamine release. Furthermore, sleep deprivation increases ghrelin and decreases leptin, thus affecting appetite control. Sleep quality is also crucial to good metabolic health. A decreased quantity of deep sleep, non-REM sleep, also referred to as stages 3 and 4 slow wave sleep, can impair the central lymphatic drainage system, which may impact cognition, centrally mediated IR, insulin resistance, and neuronal health and activity. So
this is inspiring me to work on my sleep.
Yeah. Same here. And
yeah,
I think I'm going to try to, I need to order some of those glasses for one thing. Some of those blockers, the blue blocker glasses, I've seen those. And if anybody's got a recommendation for some that don't cost an arm and a leg, I would be happy to see the recommendation. But I think I need to do that. That's one thing. And I have been trying to reduce my screen time close to bedtime.
Yeah.
And reduce drinking water. I'm trying not to drink as much water at bedtime too.
Yeah. But they say you think you wake up to go to the bathroom, but you're actually probably probably most likely, but most likely what you're probably doing is you're waking up and then you're like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom, like something's waking you up because your sleep is not what it should be, rather than you actually waking up just to go to the bathroom. That's what I've heard from like pretty reputable sources. I don't recall which ones at the moment, but when I find out information, I file it in my brain into reputable and not reputable or questionable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So Jill says, I just started to just listen to podcasts before sleep, so I'm not looking at the screen. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Wean yourself away from it.
Yeah.
So, all right, Kim, you got the next section?
Okay, 1.2.2.3.4. Shift from normoglycemia, hyperinsulinemia to hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia. The metabolically healthy are initially normoglycemic, normoinsulinemic. Repeated exposure to one or more insulin resistance triggers, especially overnutrition, causes a slight elevation in plasma glucose, still well within the normal reference range of 3.5 to 5.3, but enough to cause glycemic stress on mitochondria. This glycemic stress causes an increase in systemic mitochondrial respiration, a decrease in oxidative phosphorylation reactions, and overall production of ATP, as well as concurrent increases in glycolytic reactions and production of reactive oxidative species. The process reduces effective cellular communication and protein/other substrate production and increases the cell's need for antioxidants. This drives a number of different processes, including a loss of the first phase insulin release for reasons not fully elucidated, but hypothesized to involve a less hyperpolarizable.
Polarizable?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, hyperpolarizable. Okay. Now I forgot the other word. Hold on. Inner mitochondrial membrane. Observations show a decrease in quantity and or impaired exocytosis of the readily releasable insulin vesicles.
It's reasonable.
Reasonable. This loss of first phase insulin response is evident in people with impaired glucose tolerance and type 2 diabetes, but may also predict their onset.
Okay, that I think ties in. You know how we've talked about, and I know Dr. Bickman has referenced this, like when people who are on a low carb diet, they fail their glucose tolerance test, and it's because they don't, they're eating such low carbs that they don't store enough of the insulin in their, like there's that first phase, and if you don't have enough in there for that first phase, then it causes you to fail. So I believe I'm trying to tie this into things that I've already learned. So does that make sense to y'all that this is kind of relating to that phenomenon, in that first phase can kind of indicate whether or not you're in insulin resistance, depending on what it is that your body is accustomed to?
I'm not sure if it's related to that first phase or not, because that first phase is like pretty much within an hour or so, and then the second phase
within 10 minutes.
Okay. So that first phase is pretty immediate, and then that second phase is like within a few hours. So I don't know if that would pertain to that you're talking about, because
but it says
what
that
he's
that
talking about
phase is,
but what he's talking about would involve like days, like, you know what I'm saying, like one day you need to, like, I don't even know how to say it. Basically,
well, what I'm talking about is like when you go in, like if you were to go in and take a glucose tolerance test and then you fail it. And I know that Dr. Bickman before has said that, like, your pancreas gets rid of any excess insulin.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't use this. So, after a certain period of time, I think it's like 12 or 15 hours or something like that, that, okay, we're not going to use, because you don't use it on a routine basis. We don't do this. So we're just going to get rid of this. And then all of a sudden you get this high dose of, that glucola, which, oh my God, that stuff made me throw up when I was pregnant. No kidding. But anyway, so you get this dose of glucola, and then you don't have that first phase of insulin response. So then therefore you just fail the glucose tolerance test. And so what he says is to eat a little bit of carbs a few hours before you have to take the test, so that your pancreas is like, oh, okay, we're doing this again.
But does that have to do with the first phase, or does that have to do with like the GLUT4 transporters?
That I'm not sure, but I know he's talked about the first phase in his talks. So that's why
Oh,
I'm kind of
has he?
tying
Okay.
that together. So, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
See, the reason,
What?
Carrie, the reason why I was questioning that is because the whole test, like the glucose tolerance test itself, I think it's like, what is it, like 3 hours long?
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I was thinking, okay, well, that wouldn't just mean like the first phase would make you fail it, because they're getting like your results all the way through it.
Well,
You know
the
what I'm
first
saying?
phase would make you fail because you wouldn't have enough to mute it.
Because that's like the initial knocking it down.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah. And Amy asked,
But
is this called the
I'm not
dawning
100%
phase?
sure, but I've been watching a lot of Ben Bickman's. Oh my gosh, he is just so great at explaining.
Oh, I know.
Things. Even so, I can't repeat it. Like
Me
he's
too.
great at explaining it, and I love him.
Me too.
Yeah, he's awesome. But anyway, it's just something to think about. I was trying to tie it all together, I guess is my point.
So this is different than the dawning phase, right? Because the first phase, we're talking about that quick insulin spike.
This is each
like right after
time.
you eat.
Yeah.
Like each meal, right, Lynn?
Yeah.
It has like that. It was that high spike, and then like within like a couple hours, there's another little spike. That's more of a long, drawn out,
Yeah, this is like a super quick and 10-minute spike of when you eat. That's what the first phase is. They said eat Oreos the day before your test. Okay.
Well, Oreos fix everything. I mean,
No,
they fix your cholesterol.
I know how to fix it. Don't take the damn test. I'm not taking that test.
I'm not taking
Not that
it
I'm going to have a
either.
baby, but.
So.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So, but it does say here that this, being repeatedly exposed to these insulin resistance triggers, it says does drive a number of different processes, including a loss of the first phase insulin release for reasons not fully elucidated. So it sounds like they're just trying to explain that you can end up losing that first phase insulin response, which I guess would be, and they said it's real prevalent, especially you've seen in type 2 diabetes, which would probably be one thing that contributes to them always having high blood sugar, because that first spike was a big spike of insulin. And so I'm sure that really helps to bring the blood sugar down. And if people lose that, then their blood sugar is going to remain elevated.
Okay, I get it now, I think. Please forgive me. It's been a long week, but I think I get it now. So
there's nothing to forgive you for, honey.
People can think you failed it if you're low carb, because the response is similar to the diabetic response. But in reality, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense, because
got it.
You don't have that initial high first phase.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes. Got it. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for bearing with me.
Y'all want me to keep reading?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. In affected skeletal and adipose cells, GLUT4 transporters are downregulated, resulting in increased insulin requirements, both basal and bolus, to maintain normal glycemia. There is considerable discussion as to which body system, especially between adipose tissue and skeletal muscle cells, which then becomes the major driver for systemic metabolic disease. Given the recent advances in biochemistry and a better understanding of the pleiotropic and biochemical effects of insulin, the answer is likely multimodal with different systems, which may also include bone or the central nervous system being the catalyst for different populations.
Oh,
Overall, the early stages of glycemic stress results in compensatory hyperinsulinemia that will maintain normoglycemia. If not resolved sufficiently quickly, long-term permanent changes to the mitochondria may result, leading to chronic hyperinsulinemia with normoglycemia. Eventually, the maintained glycemic stress will result in B cell failure, resulting in decreased insulin secretion.
Okay, so I think I believe I understand this. So what they're saying is it's what we've talked about before, like up to 20 years before, your insulin level starts going up and your glucose level is staying low. So when your doctor tests you at your physical and you're at like 96 or whatever, and they're like, okay, you're normal, you're good, but your insulin keeps creeping up every year. Is this what I'm
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
exactly what I was thinking, was that 20-year time span where you can actually be quite pre-diabetic for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still doing damage and they're not finding it because
Yeah.
when you fast, then what do you know? You got a normal sugar in the morning, you
Yep.
know, but you'll go and you'll have a sugar of like 101 or 102, and your doctor will say, oh, well, that's fine. That's just barely over 100. No, honey, if you're over 100 fasted for 8 hours, that's a problem.
And we haven't checked your insulin. Your insulin might be
Exactly.
20.
They're not checking,
And
right?
And they never
It's
check
good.
your insulin.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's taking more and more insulin to keep the blood sugar at a normal range.
Yeah.
Until eventually your body's done and it can't do it anymore. So you're no longer, so then your blood sugar starts going up out of the normal range.
Okay, so
but
that's
yeah,
what
I mean,
they're
like
talking
you read,
about here, I think.
It could take decades.
Yeah, I think that's
Take
exactly
decades.
what I was thinking when you were, or when I was reading that. I was thinking that exact same thing, and then you said it.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, I'm not lagging behind.
I think I've lost my place. So, do I start it overall or this depressed?
This depressed is
okay. This depressed insulin.
This depressed is. Oh my God.
This depressed insulin sensitivity, I guess. Is that it?
Yeah.
IS. From pancreatic beta cells, especially in the presence of insulin resistance in the alpha cells, will impair glucagon suppression. This leads to excessive glucagon being released, which will raise both basal and postprandial glucose concentrations, leading to hyperglycemia, eventually resulting in type 2 diabetes. Given that hyperglucagonemia is associated with both type 1 and type 2 diabetes, it demonstrates that diabetes mellitus is, at a minimum, a bihormonal disorder. Therefore, it suggests that a good clinical understanding of glucagon is necessary to fully understand hyperglycemia, but that is beyond the scope of this review. The debate around whether type 2 diabetes can be cured, reversed, or put into remission likely depends on a multitude of factors. There is evidence to demonstrate B cell morphology with functional improvement in both alpha and beta cells can occur with weight loss. However, the changes to mitochondrial function required further investigation to determine their permanence.
Okay, so weight loss can help. All right. So it all goes back to diet. So,
yeah, I guess the part, that very last sentence is kind of throwing me off a little bit. I mean, I guess they say there's a point of no return. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point. I would think that there's a point of no return because there are people who actually have such bad type 2 diabetes that they almost go into like a type 1. like when they actually start having to inject insulin. That's
Well,
because
yeah, but that's not because their beta cells aren't making enough. See,
it can be.
It can be, yeah.
Well, yeah, it can be, but I don't think that I don't know. I've heard that there can be like two separate situations, but that like with the beta cells producing, that has nothing to do with being type 2 or not. That just means that so like LADA, for example, is not necessarily because you've just been type 2 for so long that your beta cells are pooped. But I don't know. I don't know enough about that I've heard a lot of discussion though, but I was just kind of curious. So
Well, I know that Dr. Sophia Clemens in, is it Hungary? She's got the Paleo Medica organization
yeah,
that do all that. Yeah, but she's been able to reverse even type 1 diabetes when caught early enough with fatty meat and high fat meat diet that's just fat and meat. And so the beta cells must, at least to some extent, respond to the diet if you do it right and catch it early enough. You're muted, Kim.
I've heard that there are people that have like a double situation where they both have low production in the pancreas. They can't make enough, and they have the type 2 symptoms of the insulin resistance.
Okay. I told you guys I was wrong, I believe. I believe I'm wrong about that. But y'all couldn't hear me and I thought y'all heard me. So
no, you were muted.
actually, huh?
You were muted.
Okay. What I was actually thinking, I believe, is that type 1 people can actually develop some type 2 symptoms.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I think I was thinking of.
Yep.
Sorry. And it's because they're totally different things, right? But type 1 people can become, type 2 people are resistant to insulin resistance, but type 1 people can actually become that way towards the insulin that is, they're injecting into themselves to treat their type 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Because the same thing happens when you're type 2 and you just keep injecting that insulin, and it just makes it worse too.
Yeah. And then there's always those cases where I guess somebody was like headed to type 1, but not just fully there yet. And then they're an adult before they realize, oh, it wasn't actually type 2 diabetes, it was type 1. Because I know people that's happened to them too. And I think that's just the autoimmune component of that,
Yeah.
Yeah. So Amy has a question. And so gastric bypass stops diabetes. How does that work? You can't out with gastric bypass someday, but not much. I don't remember the name of the cells in the stomach, and it's been a while, but I know that there's cells in the stomach that, especially like with gastric sleeve, I remember talking to a lot of people that had it, and actually talking to bariatric doctors. They said that when you cut out the portion of the stomach, you lose all these cells that contribute to diabetes. And I wish that I could have a better answer, because it's like I said, it's been years since I've had this discussion with anybody. But I'm thinking that it works the same way with gastric bypass, because those cells aren't.
It had something to do. I was thinking it had something to do with the GLP-1.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's a combination of the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I wish I'd have to go look it up again. It's been, like I said, it's been years since I had this discussion, but there is definitely something in the stomach that that is no longer being activated, and therefore you can, helps with diabetes. So, okay.
I'm looking it up. But you can go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, did we finish your section? We didn't finish the section yet.
We're on insulin
Oh, we didn't.
resistance or hyperinsulinemia.
Okay. I don't know what's wrong with my brain today, but I've just got a Friday brain. Like I can't even keep track of where we're at.
It feels so weird to be Friday. Like it doesn't feel like Friday to me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is section 1.2.4, insulin resistance or hyperinsulinemia. So although the literature has traditionally discussed insulin resistance as the condition that underpins type 2 diabetes, there are a number of challenges with this definition. Firstly, it ignores the role of hyperinsulinemia. It is frequently surmised that type 2 diabetes occurs when the pancreas is unable to produce sufficient compensatory insulin to overcome the defects associated with insulin resistance. Yet, as shown above, hyperinsulinemia is an important modulator of metabolic health independently of insulin resistance. Furthermore, there needs to be a clear distinction between physiologically necessary acute insulin resistance compared to chronic insulin resistance, which is almost always associated with hyperinsulinemia under a carbohydrate load. This means that although insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia have distinct biochemical pathways, the two conditions are intertwined and frequently conflated, especially due to the feed-forward pathways. Chronic hyperinsulinemia is a known driver of insulin resistance, while chronic insulin resistance causes compensatory hyperinsulinemia under an excessive glycemic load. So it's like a vicious cycle, it sounds like. You start out with high levels of insulin, you develop insulin resistance. The insulin resistance drives more higher levels of insulin. Okay, so as previously described, humans have evolved to perform well under chronic insulin resistance in the absence of excessive glycemia. Hyperglycemia synergistically compounds the pathophysiologies associated with hyperinsulinemia. Given hyperglycemia is easily measured, but hyperinsulinemia is not, it is highly plausible that many associated pathologies, for example, microvascular disease, meant in the hyperinsulinemic normoglycemic state. For example, hyperinsulinemia / insulin resistance elevates plasminogen activator inhibitor type 1 or PAI-1. It impairs the fibrinolysis process, increasing the risk of thrombosis or blood clots. This process can be induced by acute pain. So in the normal glycemic state, it can be considered evolutionary necessary to help survive trauma. However, hyperglycemia increases the secretion of hepatic clotting factors and the pro-inflammatory cytokine interleukin 6, thus increasing the risk of microthrombi. Collectively, the increased risk of developing microthrombi combined with the decreased capacity to clear them means that people with type 2 diabetes, which are hyperglycemic and hyperinsulinemic, have a significantly increased risk of microvascular disease. Given the intertwined nature of chronic insulin resistance and pathological hyperinsulinemia, unless otherwise specified, the two conditions will be collectively referred to as hyperinsulinemia for the rest of this section. Okay.
Okay. So, nurses. Translate.
So what I'm
Now look at me.
Well, I'm just basically reading that there's like, you can't say that hyperinsulinemia and insulin resistance are the same. They're two
I was
different
thinking that, but then the way that they were talking initially, it was like, no, they're two separate things. I'm like, oh, really? I got a little confused because I was interpreting it initially as, okay, these are two totally separate things, but So are they? So they're now saying they are the same
They're
thing.
intertwined. They're intertwined with each other, but they're not the same thing. So, like, because insulin resistance is your cells, right? It's at a
Right. Your
cellular
cells
level.
are
Your cells
resisting the signals that
resist.
insulin
Yeah,
gives it.
hyperinsulinemia is too much insulin floating around in your bloodstream. So one is, an excess of insulin. The other is an inability of your cells to utilize it.
But the fact that your cells can't utilize it means that they have just been over-signaled. So the hyperinsulinemia, so it is like a vicious cycle in that, the cells have been getting too much signal and they're like, we ain't doing this.
Yeah.
And so then the insulin tries harder, right?
Yeah. But I think too, it's talking about that there's other pathways that are affected by having too much insulin. So that's what it's talking about, the clotting, that it can cause issues with the clotting process and increasing your risk of blood clots. So
it basically also said chronic hyperinsulinemia is a known driver of insulin resistance, while chronic insulin resistance causes compensatory hyperinsulinemia under an excessive glycemic load. So, I don't know.
So it starts to become, the way I'm interpreting that is it starts to become this cycle because the cells need more, but yet they can't. And so insulin is like pushing more and more, and it just they keep going around and around and around because on the one hand, the cells need it, but on the other hand, they don't, or they think they don't, or.
Okay, so maybe do they need it to process all this sugar, but they're like not letting it in because they're already full.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, or is that something totally different?
And the pathways have been disrupted because remember we read about how inside the mitochondria, inside the cell, it gets clogged up, and that GLUT4 can't get to the cell surface to allow the insulin inside. Yeah. So there's more than one thing going on.
So the cells are crying for help, but at the same time, they can't accept the help. Because the cells think they're starving. But but they can't get it.
Because they're short of energy, or they're simultaneously starving, and especially like the cells or especially like the brain. I remember reading that there would be sugar all around the brain, but it couldn't do anything with it.
Oh, Ben Bickman, water everywhere. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Yes.
Iron Maiden. I know Iron Maiden did not write that, but and it's based on a poem, but still, I loved it. I was like, yes.
Yeah. Mine's here, totally separate things that are often conflated because they are different, but a lot of the same. Got it. Yeah, I know. It's clear as mud, right?
Yeah. So clear as mud.
I mean, listen, we've got an analyst, a data analyst, and two nurses here, and we're just like scratching our heads, like, huh? So you guys are actually seeing the wheels turn, and it's painful.
Yep. It is painful. I know. That's a lot of confusion here. Absolutely. So, Amy,
but it is still awesome that we're working through it, like in real time together.
Yeah. And also so people can see, like, number one, there's way more to this whole low carb and carnivore stuff than meets the eye. Okay. Yeah. Dr. Berry and all these other docs, they're aware of all of this stuff. They know all this stuff. And then they're feeding us this little bite-sized bit of information that we can understand, that we can all understand. They're kind of like translators. But I and Lynn and Carrie want to be translators.
Yes.
So this is
we
why
want
we're
to
doing
know.
this.
We want to know about the man behind the curtain.
Yes. I was always the
That's
one in
right.
nursing school that would be like, but why should we not do that? Or why does the heart do that? You know, like I didn't want to leave class until I knew exactly the mechanism of, Mike said, nerd power.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, I was that person too, you know, just inquisitive and wanting to know every detail. So, all right. So, yeah. So, I mean, the fact that I think that the takeaway is that at least for me, not only is it they're two separate things, but the increased insulin can cause other issues. So it puts you at risk for other problems besides just diabetes. It can end up causing you problems with clotting. And I mean, and clotting is something that's needed under the right circumstances. You know, like if you're injured and you experience trauma and you're bleeding, you need that clotting response. It's when you're not injured and you don't need it that you end up having problems. These microvascular clots are a problem. And I mean, you know, for type 2 diabetics, that's what ends up, you know, they end up with, peripheral neuropathy and, you know, circulatory issues. So,
Yeah.
Okay. What time is it? All right. We haven't gotten to the gingerbread man. You guys want to just stop here?
This might be a good place to stop. I'm sorry. I guess I veered us off the path, but I was just.
No,
you know, I did too. I talked about
it.
I really want to understand what I'm, you know, I mean, I've been like in classes before and people groan because I'll ask like, okay, but
we were all that person, Carrie. Okay.
They're like, oh, come on. We want to leave at 4:00. Why are you asking questions?
Yeah. They would all get mad at me. They would all count my questions. And so as a, you know, retaliation to that, after I found out they were doing it, I would raise my hand and I'd be like, this is question 42, blah, 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 blah.
That's great. That's great.
We're having a discussion in the chat about Bob's your uncle. I'm familiar with that saying.
I don't know. What is Bob's your uncle? I don't know it.
What? I've got an Uncle Bob.
Oh, gosh. I've heard it used. It's been so long. Let me see what it means.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
It's okay. So Bob's your uncle is an informal colloquial expression that is commonly used in the UK and Commonwealth countries. It can have multiple meanings, including "and there it is" or "there you have it." It's done. Everything is taken care of. You're all set. You got it made. Something. Yeah, basically.
Oh, okay, I got you. It's kind of like. And what is the other thing? It's like the sentence that isn't ended. It's like end of. Yes, they say end of over there. So like they'll say stuff like rock and roll end of, and you're like, end of what? You know,
I've never heard that
like
one.
I've never heard it either. And my grandmother's from there.
Yeah.
My mom used to say Bob's your uncle, and I think she got it from probably her grandmother because her grandmother was born in England. And so it's not necessarily a traditional American saying.
Well, my grandmother came over in World War II, so she was English.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still have cousins over there that I talk to sometimes, and they come over and see us. But yeah, I guess I've just never heard that.
There you have it. You got it. All right.
I'm surprised I haven't heard that from my dad. My dad's Canadian, and he would always say like weird stuff that other people didn't understand, you know.
Okay, so
I'm a redneck Canuck. Because I'm Southern/Canadian. So I'm a redneck Canuck.
So where did we get to, guys?
We got to 1.2.2.5.
Yeah, so we'll pick up there.
Hyperinsulinemia.
I mean, I almost think we should finish this out until we get to the 1.2.2.5.1. I don't know.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, it's just a small section.
Well, I'm just looking at the
It's
the
not
Yeah,
much.
you're right. Yeah, you're right. We've got one more like non-bolded little section, and we come to the next bolded section. So yeah, you're right. Do you want me to quickly read that section?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so yeah, and it's probably good. Consequences of hyperinsulinemia. So hyperinsulinemia affects every cell within the body, especially via mitochondrial defects and changes to fuel flux. Okay, leading to increased ROS and AGE production. So those are the oxidative stress, right? However, it must also be remembered that body systems do not work in isolation, and the overall impact of hyperinsulinemia should be considered holistically. For example, insulin resistance in cardiac neurons will impair healthy function of the cardiovascular system, just as vasoconstriction in cerebral capillaries will have significant effects on cerebral health. This means that hyperinsulinemia is directly and or indirectly associated with many different pathologies, both mechanistically and or epidemiologically. The main mechanisms involved are mitochondrial stress and altered substrate metabolism, ectopic lipid accumulation, increased gene transcription, vascular or neurological consequences, and by affecting different signaling pathways, including intracellular pathways like P13K or MAPK, or extracellular pathways, including hormones or cytokines. So, and so,
And I know what ectopic lipid accumulation is, thanks to Dr. Bickman. He said that ectopic means something that doesn't belong there.
Yeah, like ectopic pregnancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
I'm
the wrong
learning.
place.
This is awesome. Okay, great. Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but I'm
No,
excited when I can connect the dots. Okay.
Yeah, so
great.
ectopic lipid accumulation is lipids are where they don't belong, right?
Yep.
So this is the figure that it was referring to, which we were excited to show, is the gingerbread man.
Isn't
It's
that
basically
cute?
just showing you a visual of the complications of hyperinsulinemia. So you've got the neuropsychiatric, the gastrointestinal, the endocrine, cancer, urology, general inflammation, skeletal, circulatory, and then they have like tinnitus, vertigo, Meniere's disease, periodontal disease. So there's like a whole bunch of stuff. Even your eyes, retinopathy, which we know from like type 2 diabetes, but even before you have type 2 diabetes, I guess hyperinsulinemia can cause problems with your retina.
But you know what my theory is? It all goes to the little word in the right lower corner, inflammation. All of these things are inflammation. They're all related to inflammation in whatever area it is. That's my thought.
All caused by diet and environment. I mean, there's a combination of things because our bodies are primitive bodies living in a modern society.
And
we haven't adapted. I mean,
and the only way sorry, Sarah. I mean, Carrie, sorry.
No, it's okay, but we're just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. And the only way that we have names for any of this stuff other than inflammation is that we are people who want to explain things and come up with groupings of things and put groupings of symptoms together. And, this is that. And then this is that. I think it's all the same.
Yep.
It's all the same thing. It's just wherever it presents.
I'm just interested in the fact that it lists ulcerative colitis here because ulcerative colitis is considered an autoimmune disease, but yet
which is inflammation.
But it's your body attacking itself. It's like it didn't list Crohn's disease, which is also an autoimmune.
They probably don't have enough room to list everything. They had to pick and choose.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's part of it because there's so much they could list that's not there.
And I mean, I'm sure like if scientists and doctors heard me saying that, they'd be like, "Oh, she doesn't understand." And it's like, I think I do.
I bet you Dr. Nelson
Maybe.
would say we understood. He's not here tonight. I miss him.
Yeah, me too. Maybe I'm at that point on the the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you don't realize how much there is that you don't know, so you think you know more.
Yeah.
I actually don't think I know
Oh.
that much. I'm just trying to figure out my body, and like it seems like every single problem I have and every single problem my friends have is related to inflammation of some sort. You know?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Mike, inflammation, seed oils, too much insulin because too much carbs and sugar. That's right. Inflammation gives new meaning to Alicia Keys. That girl's on fire.
Yep.
Ain't that the truth? All right. Okay, so basically hyperinsulinemia, the takeaway, does not just lead to type 2 diabetes. It causes generalized inflammation and all sorts of issues. So, all righty. Well, we will stop there. And so are we good for picking up the normal schedule next week, Kim? Are you working Thursday or what's this?
No, I think I'm back to, well, I say a normal schedule, but my schedule's getting ready to change.
Oh no. Hopefully
Because,
not for
no,
worse.
it's a good thing because
Oh, good.
I'm not going to be working on Fridays anymore after probably a month or two. At least
Okay.
not on a regular basis, because I did work every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday usually, and sometimes I'd throw Saturday in there, and then sometimes there'd be a random Sunday in there. But I'm not going to be charge nurse on Fridays anymore, because I don't want to be.
Right.
I just want to do it one day a week. Everybody else does it one day a week, so I'm going to also do it one day a week. But anyway, let's see here. So yeah, next. Hold on. Yeah, next week I'm off on Thursday, so we should be good.
All
Okay.
right, cool.
All right. Good deal. Thanks everybody for joining us and putting up with all of our verbally trying to process.
But we're all learning. This is good. This is good.
And
This
if we
is the
ever get
purpose
too
of the study
ridiculous,
group.
if we ever get too ridiculous for them, they can just keep scrolling and come back later.
There you go.
But we need to learn.
That's
I'm
right.
a curious person.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, and if you're around on Sunday, don't forget to join us for our book club, where we are going through. I'll show you the book since we're here. We're going through this book by Casey Means, Good Energy.
Mine is right here. Good energy.
Mine's over on the table.
No worries. So.
Yeah, Mike said pop quiz next Friday.
Okay. All right.
Don't tell anybody.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we hope you have a fantastic weekend. And we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.